Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Refuge from Narcissism, and this refugee video is sponsored by contribution from Lisa. And Lisa sent in some audio files. They're over an hour, so we're gonna be here. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi, Ollie. I hope you can hear this. I think I figured out how to leave or email voice messages to you. And I'm also really nervous to do this. I feel like I have so many stories. I feel like I don't even know where to start, but I want to contribute because all of the stories have really helped me a lot. I had started listening to you back, years ago now, when it was like the narcissistic resistance, and then I lost the channel, and then it came back to me again. But back when I first learned about narcissism, and that's a whole story how I found out about narcissism too. But I'm a little, anyway, what was I saying? So, the stories have helped me tremendously. So I want to contribute too, but I'm really, really nervous about, telling my story. And I thought, well, how do I do this? Where do I start? Which one do I start with? So I thought, well, you know what? I'll just go about, like I'm driving now, like I'll just go about my business and act like I'm just telling my stories. And the other part why I'm really nervous about it too is because, I just really feel like recently a lot of people that I really love and care about have turned against me. And I'm like, why are all of these people turning against me now, And the most significant one is my daughter. So that's been a new surprise for me with the whole narcissism thing. It was just, okay, so when I first learned about narcissism, my daughter was still young, like a teenager. I would say like 16, 17, and she's 22 now. And she'll be 23 in February. Wow, I can't believe that. But I know a lot of times we talk about our parents, right? Our narcissistic parents. And with me, it started out with my ex-husband. And then it was like, wow, yes, like I've heard you say, you end up kind of marrying into the same situation you were raised in, basically, right? So, so I feel like I need to say real quick how I even learned what narcissism was. So, many years ago, I was on an online foreign currency trading chat room. I was trying to learn how to do foreign currency trading, and I actually had gone to Barcelona, Spain, and I was really like wanting to learn how to do that. And I was having an issue with this man from England. He was like kind of like stalking me and like harassing me, always like kind of picking on me, being real mean. And I would get all frazzled, and upset about it. And my ex-husband said he's a narcissist. And I was like, what? What is that? I didn't even know what that meant. So I had to go look it up. And, back then, the only thing that I found through like a Google search was, I don't even know if it was Google back then. It was like Internet Explorer or something. It only said, the Greek mythology of the man that looks at his reflection in the pool of water and all of this. And basically someone who's full of themselves, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's him. so that was the first time I ever even heard the word narcissist. And years later, right at the time, I decided to leave my ex-husband, which was a big deal for me. And I appreciate, there was the black girl that did the video recently that, you know, she's a devout Christian, and she mentioned a little bit about leaving her husband and how hard that was with the church. This is a big deal. And anyway, I have more to say about that too, because I've discovered some things, but I don't want to get on too many rabbit trails, which I do tend to do. So anyway, so then years later, when I decided for sure I was going to leave my ex-husband, and we'd been together since I was 17, and we were married. Well, we were together probably almost 30 years and married over 20 years, I think. Yeah. I decided to leave him, and right around that time, I kept saying, I would always ask my ex-husband this question. I'm like, don't you care? I would say, don't you care? And he would never answer me. And then I finally figured out, no, he doesn't care. He doesn't answer because he doesn't care. He never said, no, I don't care. But he never would say, yes, of course I care, right? No, he never said that. And anyway, he told me, he said, because I'm a narcissist. Yeah, he told me that, and I was like, what? And then, of course,
He told you that he's a narcissist, or he was calling you a narcissist? He was saying he doesn't care because he's a narcissist? I think that's what you're saying.
Went and had to look it up again. I mean, I sort of remembered, you know, from before when I looked it up. And then by that time, the internet had exploded with narcissism information. And of course, that's how I found you back then. So I have lots and lots of stories from my childhood. I think there's lots of stories, but it's hard to like narrow it down, you know. It's hard to narrow it down. And of course, then being married to one, apparently, because he told me he was one, you know, like I would have never known. If he hadn't told me that, I would have never known what was going on. But I guess what I really, really want to talk about is my daughter. Where do I start with that? So me and my ex-husband have 3 biological children, and then I adopted the 4th one. I had become so our 3 biological children are all autistic. My daughter, who is 22, she actually is high functioning autistic, like Asperger's syndrome. And then both my boys are, one has some language, like echolalic language, a little bit of spontaneous language, but not much at all. Like almost like when a baby's first talking is kind of the amount of language he has, and the other one has no language at all. And then I had become a foster parent because I homeschooled my daughter when I never found out my daughter had Asperger's syndrome until she was 7. And it was almost the same experiences that I had with when my ex-husband said narcissism. When I had taken my daughter to, the guy said he was into social pragmatics, and I brought her to him. I had done other things too, and you know when you're a parent and you're not sure quite what's wrong, you try different things. So anyway, I found this guy. He said he was into social pragmatics and had this whole description of what that meant. And I thought, oh yeah, that sounds like what she was struggling with. So I went to him, and I got to make a U-turn here. Just a second. It's starting to rain. Oh, by the way, I live in Florida too, so I'm hunkering down for the hurricane too. But let's see here. So anyway, the social pragmatics guy said, when I was describing everything about her, or the challenges, he said, well, of course she has Asperger's syndrome. And I was like, what? I'd never heard of it before. Same thing, had to go home, look it up, and get educated on what Asperger's syndrome meant, right? So I'm pulling into my stop here, and I'm not even into the story. Anyway, I ended up homeschooling my daughter because, homeschooling, there was a big boom in Florida. There was a big support community of homeschoolers, and, I had this dream because I had personally come away from, not a good childhood. I wanted to have that. So I just wanted, this, I don't know, Little House on the Prairie, Hallmark, Norman Rockwell family. That's, I think, what I wanted. And I just thought, this tight-knit community of people that are very family-oriented, I wanted to be a part of that. And plus she was having challenges, so I thought this would be perfect, And it was a big community. I mean, we did all kinds of fun things. We swam with manatees, and that was the big one for me. Oh, it's really starting to rain here. It was we had a lot of good times, me and my daughter did. And I thought we were very, very close. And, this is a big story, and I'm already talking for 11 minutes. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to do several videos and send in contributions with them. I think that's probably the best way to go. But, yeah, so, okay, let's see here. How can I, wrap up what happened? So I was saying that me and my daughter were always really close. Okay, so when I left my ex-husband, she was about 17 or 16. She was about 16, I believe. Yeah, she was 16 because it was right around the time that she was supposed to learn how to drive. But, of course, she had some delays, so that was delayed. She's still not driving right now, actually. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Okay, so when I was wanting to say this. So when I left my ex-husband, okay, what I did was I did a whole, exit plan. Because up to that point, I had helped my husband. We were kids, remember when we met, and I had helped him get a job with a telecom company. And so he had a really good paying job by the time we started having children. And then when I had my daughter, I decided to stop working. I would do odd jobs, I did non-emergency medical transport. And then I was doing some babysitting, which is what led me into fostering. Because we lived way.
But you already have 3 autistic children that are special needs. I don't understand why you would take on a 4th. And if you follow my channel, people know my opinions on autism. I think autism is real. I think it gets overdiagnosed a lot. If you have 2 nonverbal children, that's autism. But my opinion, this is just my opinion, not medically trained or anything like that. But from what I've seen, just so many people who come to me over narcissistic abuse have children on the spectrum. And to me, it's a red flag. It really is. Because when I was a kid, autism, it wasn't around like this. It just wasn't. You never heard of three kids in a family all having autism. You just didn't. So hopefully we're getting somewhere. Now this won't play. Wonderful. Bear with me.
Fortunately and unfortunately, he is a child from my marriage, but because I was able to adopt him by myself, now I don't have to worry about my crazy ex-husband, doing crazy things. We lived like way out in the country, and I had one little babysitting job, but when they left, it was really difficult for me to get any more babysitting jobs because we just live so rural, right? So I decided to go into fostering, and that's how I adopted my youngest child. And fortunately and unfortunately, he is a child from my marriage, but because I was able to adopt him by myself, now I don't have to worry about my crazy ex-husband, doing crazy things to him. But anyway, back to my daughter. So I made this whole exit plan, okay, because I was a stay-at-home mom. I just fostered and had odd jobs. He was the breadwinner, made most of the money. He had us on the medical insurance, all that stuff. So I had to make an exit plan. And I had started driving for Uber at nights, and I was making really pretty good money. I mean, truthfully, it ends up being more like cash flow, but I was making, enough money to where I got a studio apartment, not too far from like my rural home, like the closest apartments, that were, near where our home was. I managed to get a studio apartment there. It took like 6 months on the waiting list, and I had to demonstrate that I could earn enough money to get it and all of these things. And so they did. They let me in, and I got the studio apartment, right? And so at first my plan, because I really didn't have a great plan.
Well, you moved into a studio apartment. Did you move in by yourself or did you move in with the kids? Because if there's three or four kids, depending on where, I mean, did you go by yourself or are the kids with you here?
Um, uh, was I would, get the children get them up in the morning, take care, like I would do all of my motherly duties, but then I was already working nights, so I'd be gone at night. And then like when they were in school, I would just sleep at my studio apartment, right? That was going to be my plan, my exit plan. I have to tell you, I want to be talking about my daughter, but I have to tell you, right at the time I was supposed to be leaving and moving to my studio apartment, my ex-husband cut his leg with an axe. Yeah. And even the medics and stuff came and were like, what in the world? And I remember he was like smirking too. And I'm like freaking out. And he was, I think he did it because by that time he knew I was leaving. I had kind of kept it a secret, but by that time he knew. And I want to say, and even my daughter said, Mom, do you think Dad did that on purpose? Even she said that. And I have to tell you this part too. He did hurt his foot. He had joined the Army when we were young, and he hurt his foot and got discharged. So it's not like, you know what I'm saying? And there was another incident too where he was trying to, I don't know, like trying to commit suicide or something. Like he kept walking on the train tracks until he passed out, and then the ambulance had to come and get him. And it was this whole like thing back when we were young kids, before he even went to the army. It wasn't too loud. So let's see here. Okay, so like I said, I wanted to talk about my daughter. But it's like all of these, it's like there's so many underlying things that one thing leads to another. It's hard to, get to exactly what, I want to say. But, so it wasn't too long. I finally got in my studio apartment and I was doing my little routine. And at that time, the youngest foster son, we were actually trying to get him adopted with another family. And that's a whole nother story. But, so he wasn't in my home anymore. He was with another foster mom, and we were in the process of trying to have him adopted. But I still would pick him up every weekend, and, and that's how I ended up adopting him. But that's a whole nother story. But, anyway, it wasn't too long into me having this little routine where I had my own little studio apartment, but I was coming back to the home because I had asked my ex-husband to leave. I did ask him to leave, and he said no, he wouldn't. He knew his rights. And then I thought, well, what can I do? And I did not want to move to a roach motel or something. I didn't want to bring my children into a roach motel. So this is how I came up with the whole plan with the studio apartment and all of that. And like I said, it took well over 6 months for me to get it. Okay, and then I finally got it, and I got it set up, and I'm, still running back to the home and taking care of the children and just doing all of that, but then having my own place, right? And my daughter actually came to me and said, Mom, can we just come and live with you? And I thought, well, truthfully, at this point, it would probably be easier than me running back and forth. So long story short, I ended up, by this time though, my one son, it was just right around that time, I got my one son into a group home, a really good group home. He was in a special needs public school here. And then I got him into a really good group home for boys. So my one son had moved into the group home. So then it would be me and my daughter, and then my one son with autism, and then my foster son, whenever I would come and get him. And I said, you know what, that's probably would be easier than me coming back and forth, plus still having to deal with my ex-husband, right? And so that's what ended up happening. All of us lived in a studio apartment while he still had the 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, right? Oh gosh, there's so much to this. But okay, so in the process of it turning around, I'm going to skip forward. These other adoptions for my foster son were falling through. So the DCF manager came to me and she said, we really think that you should, talking to me, that you should adopt your son, my son. And I said, well, I won't pass the home study. I live in a studio apartment with the 3 of us. And then I would always have my son in the group home would always come every weekend. So it was 4 of us, then 5 of us in a studio apartment, right? But we did great. I mean, it was great, it wasn't bad. I had Christmas. We had Christmas in the studio apartment and everything. That's another story too. It was the first Christmas in the studio apartment, and I took videos and pictures and sent it to my ex-mother-in-law, and she said, do you hate my son that much? Don't ever send me anything ever again. Is that weird or what? And So
I don't know the background of what's going on with you and your husband. I mean, we're 22 minutes into this almost, and we're nowhere. And I think this could be part of the problem here is that you don't know how to communicate and you talk in circles. And I don't know. I hope this is going somewhere, because it's like the story never goes anywhere. It seems you have communication issues.
oh, anyway, so in order to adopt my youngest son, I had to at least get a 2-bedroom apartment, which at the time I couldn't afford that by myself. But like that girl was talking, God just made it. It was like a miracle. God worked it out, made it happen. We ended up moving to a 2-bedroom apartment that was basically across the courtyard from my studio apartment, and I was able to afford that 2-bedroom apartment for several years. Yes. I don't know. I don't even know how. It was a miracle. But it was because we did that, I was able to pass the home study.
What the hell? Like, this keeps stopping. I don't know why. There's something wrong with this thing.
All of us lived in a studio. Send me anything ever again. Is that weird or what? God just made it. It was like a miracle. God worked it out, made it happen. We ended up moving to a 2-bedroom apartment that was basically across the courtyard from my studio apartment, and I was able to afford that 2-bedroom apartment for several years. Yes. I don't know. I don't even know how. It was a miracle. But it was because we did that, I was able to pass the home study and adopt my youngest son right when he was 5. Yeah, he was 5 then. And anyway, all of these things were going on, and of course my daughter was getting older, 16, 17, 18. So then she was deciding she didn't want really nothing to do with her dad. When my ex-husband would pick up the boys for visitation, which for a while I was letting him pick up the youngest, the foster son that I adopted too. He really, my ex-husband really latched on to him because our boys are like really disabled, right? So my ex-husband, well, see, the whole story of how I even ended up with a little one like that, that's a whole nother story that I feel like I need to tell, but
I hope this isn't how you communicate in real life.
I might have to tell that another time.
If this is how you communicate in real life, I could see where the problems are. I mean, you gotta get to it. You gotta.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do another story and talk about that. I'm trying to get my thoughts together and figure out exactly what to talk about. But I'm focusing on what happened with my daughter. So she decided that she didn't want anything to do with her dad anymore. She didn't want to go on visitations to his house anymore. And I said, okay, you're of age. You don't have to. And, and then when the boys were away for that every other weekend, I'm like, okay, you have fun, do what you want to do, and she was always a good girl. It was never like I ever had to worry about, I never felt like I had to worry about her. The most she would do was like walk up to Starbucks and get a coffee, or walk, like she was never like in trouble, nothing. And then that gave me some time to, have some time to myself too, when the boys were with my ex-husband. So she had just kind of like didn't want anything to do with her dad, and they didn't speak. They didn't yeah, there was nothing there. And then, okay, how do I skip forward here? So, oh my goodness, there's so much to it. How do I make this? I feel like if I do like an overview and then I can get more detailed later on. Let's see here. Okay, so years later, and there's a whole part of this story too. My ex-husband, I had taken him back to mediation for contempt. He was in contempt of the first divorce agreement. And this is what I'm saying. There's a whole story with this because it was actually my mother paid to bring him back for contempt. And that's a whole nother story. That I'll maybe get detailed in another video. So we go back for contempt, and my ex-husband offers if he could cut my child support and alimony in half, that he would give me the home. And my attorney at the time said, you should take this deal. And she said, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Just take the deal. So anyway, he was supposed to move out at a certain date, which he did not do, in contempt again. And also there was a whole situation with, we had gotten insurance money for the roof of the home. And I didn't want to sign the check because I was afraid he was going to steal it. Sorry, I'm getting text messages. And, but I called the mortgage company and they said, oh, we'll oversee the repairs so you can sign the check. So I went ahead and he tried to get my daughter, to forge my name on the check so he could cash it. And that was a whole big thing. My daughter was all upset and, had come to me and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not good. So anyway, I signed the check. Anyway, in the long run, what he did was, okay, because we were never late on the mortgage. We paid every 2 weeks and we were never late. They went ahead and just gave him the money. And on top of that, he went ahead and just paid the mortgage off with his retirement account. He just paid the mortgage off. So then it was like, they don't care, anyway, so he leaves the house and, oh gosh. Okay. So he decides to move, like I said, I live in Florida. We lived in Florida. He decides to go, we're originally from New York, and he decides to, give me the house and he's going to take off to New York. And, right before I know he's going to move back to New York. Oh, and also he took an early buyout from the telecom company and early retirement. He took a buyout and early retirement, right?
I hope this has something to do with your daughter.
And he worked there for over 20 years because I had gotten him the job when we were younger through a coworker of mine. Anyhow, so anyway, he starts taking our daughter out on what they said coffee dates. And I thought, okay, he's like wanting to bond with her before he leaves to New York. And she was willing to go. So I was like, okay. But then they'd be gone for like hours. And then she'd come back and be hungry. Like, I'm like, well, didn't he feed you? And no, but she said they were caught, and I'm like, what are you talking about for hours? And she just said, oh, about my artwork and stuff. And I'm thinking, there's no way he's listened to her talking about her artwork for hours. And then she comes home hungry and have not eaten. Something ain't right here. And,
I hate to tell you this. She's talking about you. That's what she was talking about. She was talking about you.
Anyway, I had an issue. So I had just gotten my real estate license, and I had started working for a broker, and it was long hours. They wanted me there Monday through Saturday, like at least until like 6 o'clock at night. And then sometimes on Sunday, if like people wanted to view properties and stuff, they wanted me in the office. And it was a lot. And me and my daughter had come up with a plan. I said, if you could help me get the boys off the bus, then, come fall, we'll look into getting her into Full Sail, the art college in Orlando, right? And because she still hadn't gotten a job by this time, and she was almost 19. She was 18, almost 19. And she's a very gifted artist, like a savant, very good. And anyway, I had an issue at the brokerage I was working at, and I came home early one day. And when I came home, I seen her jump out of, because I don't have really good, like, far away vision. I have to wear glasses to see far away. And I don't wear glasses all the time. I just put them on when I need them. And so in the distance, I see I think it was like a Bronco or a Blazer or something. And I see this figure jump out and run like around the back sides of the apartments. And I thought, is that my daughter? And then the vehicle comes and drives by me, and I see in the front seat it's this woman with black curly hair, and she's like smiling, smirking again, right? And I'm like, what in the world? Then my daughter comes around behind me. Oh, hey, Mom, and all of this. And I looked at her and I said, Malin, was that you? And she said, yes, the whole thing, yes. Just admitted to everything. Told me that this was a married woman that she was having a sexual relationship with. And she had her in my apartment without my knowing, which upsets me, because I don't want strange people I don't know in my apartment when I have children that, don't speak, can't tell me if anything's wrong. It was like, I'm sorry about that. I'm getting a bunch of text messages.
That's a lot of text messages
I'm like,
coming in.
What? Like, I'm in shock. Here's my daughter that I thought we had this close relationship with all of these years, and just doing all of this craziness that I'm like, what? And so all of this part happened a few years ago. So I'm like,
So she's probably not out with her father half the time. She's with this chick. That's probably what was going on.
Dealt with that. So then I'm like, does your dad know? And she's like, yeah. And anyway, all of a sudden my daughter switched on me and became so hostile. And then she says she's going to go to New York with her dad. And I'm like, truthfully, to a degree, I'm still in shock, right? Because she hadn't had a relationship with him all of this time, didn't want nothing to do with him. And I noticed that too with my ex-husband. For years, I was the only one that talked to his mother, right? On the phone. It was like me and her had a relationship. He really didn't have a relationship with her, didn't talk to her. And then as soon as I decided to leave, it was like I'm public enemy number one with my ex-mother-in-law, and their relationship is just fine. So so my daughter decides to leave. And right around that time, my aunt and uncle were actually moving to Kentucky. They sold their home and were moving to Kentucky. And I wanted to go by and say goodbye to them. And I'm going through all this with my daughter. And this was like over a weekend. It was like a whirlwind, And I'm trying to be, I don't know, like supportive. I think I'm just still in shock, right? And I take her I take her over to my aunts and uncles, and the whole time she's just acting really weird and on her phone and just really strange. And I had started dating this guy at the time, and he gave her a birthday card with money in it. And right before she left, okay, so she says to me, she comes back by the apartment to get the birthday card, and says, and she was turning 19 then, yeah. And she said, "Do I stink?" She had left my apartment by then and moved in with her dad. But like I said, this was just over a weekend. And she came in, she said, "Do I stink?" And I said, "No, why?" And she goes, "Oh, we've just been cleaning a lot and packing." So, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she grabs the card. She basically like rips open the card, doesn't read it, nothing, just takes the money and leaves. And I'm like, what? Because, you know, I didn't raise her to be disrespectful like that, you know. And so anyway, they both finally leave, and I have access to my home after years, right? And then now my daughter's left, she did help me a lot with the children, right? But that's another thing too. It's like, now come to find out, there was all these stories, and even in my own family, of, oh, well, you just got to get away from your mother, and you don't want to be in that situation. And like, almost like they felt like I was using her or something. And it wasn't like that at all. Like,
it does sound like that. I mean, it does sound like that. And what it sounds like is she didn't want anything to do with her father until she had to live alone with you. And she came to resent you because she might see things how they really are. I mean, we're going on 37 minutes here, and we're nowhere. We're nowhere. But you have a boyfriend, and like, you're making her take responsibility for the brothers and your adopted kid. Like, yeah, it does kind of seem like that. I hate to tell you, Lisa, it does. Oh, God, here it goes
again. But you know, back when I first learned about narcissism, and you know, we can support each other. You can go to Full Sail, and I'll work at this brokerage, and you know, we'll just help each other out. Well, anyway, they both leave, so now I have no help with the children, right? And the boys. And I go to the home.
Well, you shouldn't be expecting your daughter to take responsibility for her brothers.
I mean, destroyed. Like, you don't know. Like, he never had the roof fixed. He stole that money, never had the roof repaired. The water wasn't running. And that's why she said, you know, "Do I stink?" Because they didn't have any running water. The carpets were filthy. We had a little Yorkie dog that my ex-husband, I found homes for all of our pets except the little Yorkie. He said he wanted it. And he just let the dog go to the bathroom all over the house. I think at one point my daughter had even told me this. Actually, this was one of the reasons she said she didn't want to go over there anymore. He would left like old meat in a crock pot until it got maggots and flies and stuff. I mean, like, really bad, really bad. They left this home destroyed. And then they left me a nasty note, a nasty letter. And then she had collected, when she graduated from school, from homeschool, and well, actually, she graduated.
What did the nasty letter? See, you keep saying like they do these things, but you don't explain what did the letter say? Was it a revenge letter? Was it like they did this to fuck you over because of how you behave? Like, what's in the letter? Like, again, we're nowhere in the story. Nowhere. Going on 39 minutes.
I did make her get her GED. I wanted her to do that. So she graduated from the homeschooling, but I said, I still want you to get your GED too. So she took GED classes at the library for a while. Anyway, when she finally graduated, my family, we had a big party on my side of the family, my aunts and uncles, and they gave her a lot of money. Anyway, so some of the money that she spent, she bought, she'd buy these toys, Japanese toys or something in these boxes. And I guess she wanted to make them collector's things or something. And she left one of the toys there with a nasty note, well, maybe you can sell this. I don't even remember the note, exactly what it said. Something I don't.
Sounds like there's resentment over money. That's what it seems like on their end.
No, she left one of these toys on the shelf, on this nasty kitchen counter with a nasty note from the both of them. And then what happened was it was right before the pandemic thing. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but right before the pandemic, and they stonewalled me all through the pandemic, which was in contempt again because he was supposed to give a life insurance policy for the children, was part of the divorce agreement, which he's never done. But they stonewalled me all through the whole thing. Yes. And this is really long right now, but the actual part of the story I want to tell just happened recently. Oh, I got a phone call. I guess I'm still recording. Okay. Sorry, this is so long. Let's see here. So I think I said that they took off. They stonewalled me all through the whole pandemic thing. And then, sorry, now
I gotta ask, who is texting you, calling? I mean, it's been nonstop with the texts and call. It seems to me that your daughter has a resentment. Okay, because it seems you're leaving a lot out because nobody gets the amount of text messages. Is this a boyfriend? Are you focusing on the boyfriend more than you're focusing on your family? Is that what's going on here? Because that's what it seems like is going on here. And you have zero awareness, Lisa, for how aloof and rude you come off. You don't. I mean, it's obvious. Nobody's ever called you on your bullshit. Nobody. Because nobody's putting up, nobody other than your family would put up with this for any period of time. They're just not. Not this. No. No.
Lots of stories from my childhood. Let's see here. So I think I said that they took off. They stonewalled me all through the whole pandemic thing. And then, sorry, now I'm driving again and it's starting to rain. Then my ex-husband had started texting me from her phone. It was him pretending it was her. And I finally figured that out. It was him pretending to be her. And I was really upset about that, you know. And then, then her and my ex-husband had a whole incident. Okay, fast forward. Originally, I don't know if they ever stayed with my ex-mother-in-law. But I know they did stay with my ex-sister-in-law, which I still can get along with. She's a nice person. And I have spoke to her a few times, since then, but anyway, but then they ended up, my ex-husband and my daughter ended up getting their own apartment in New York. And with my daughter in a relationship with a male to female transvestite. Yeah. And I'm like, what? And I'm doing drugs. I think they're smoking pot, doing drugs, just crazy town. I'm like, what is, this is not at all how I raised my children or my family. I mean, we went to church, Wednesday night, Sunday morning, homeschooled. This is not how I raised my children, right? So, okay, so it's my ex-husband on a mattress in this, apartment with his daughter and her, boyfriend, the male to female transvestite. And anyway, they had this whole incident. They got in a big fight, and my daughter said my ex-husband tried to choke her. And anyway, they called the police. He ran away. My ex-husband ran off. And my daughter did, at that transvestite's prompting, try to get a restraining order against her own dad. But they never followed through with it, apparently. They started it, but then I think there was other stuff she had to do that she never followed through with, so I guess it just got dropped. So then my daughter's back to not speaking with her dad. But then she's in a whole mess with this transvestite who ends up stealing my daughter's identity, charging all kinds of stuff on her credit. What else did he do? He had her doing stuff that was not good, like getting involved in things that were not good, like, oh, let's get into polyamory and all this stuff too. Yeah. On my birthday, my daughter tells me, oh, well, we're going to get into this polyamory thing now too. And I'm like, what? Not, hi mom, happy birthday. No, this crazy nonsense. So, and this is after her finally starting to talk to me after stonewalling me for 2 years, right? So then, this transvestite started really abusing her, treating her very badly, leaving her out in the cold with no jacket on. She's working at a factory, not picking her up from work, doing like horrible things to her. Well, fortunately, my sister went out and did like a wellness check, checked on her, and saw that Madeline was in really bad condition. I mean, to the point where, I know I said her name there. I was trying not to do that. To the point where, she wasn't bathing. They had started living in filthy conditions. Just bad news, and, so my daughter has, or my sister has my daughter move in with her, which now my mother had built an in-law apartment off my sister's house by this point. And that's a whole nother story I want to share too. But, so my sister does take my daughter in, and my sister's married with 3 children, little ones, like elementary school age, right? And, so my sister helped her out, got her out of that bad situation. So then my daughter started getting her feet back under her, getting her credit fixed. My sister helped her get her own apartment, and helped her get services up in New York, which that was a whole big deal too. The person I had started dating actually paid to have my daughter diagnosed, have an official diagnosis, because we never had one. And it was very expensive, like $800 to have her get an official diagnosis, right? And then they wanted it, my ex-husband, and that they wanted me to give that to her. And I said, not until my ex-husband was supposed to pay for medical, and he would not do. And I said, well, you pay me, you can have the original. They could get copies of it. It wasn't like they couldn't get it. I just wasn't, it was almost like a matter of principle, like, when you pay me, you can have the original, right? But they could call the psychiatrist and get copies. And I also sent them copies. I just didn't give them the original. Anyways, so my sister did end up getting her services, getting her a place to live. Me and my daughter were talking again. It seemed like everything was good, you know, everything was good. And so right around the time she was getting her own apartment, I said, you know, from the sale of the property, I said I wanted to give Madeline, I keep saying her name and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to give her, some money, like a nest egg to have, right? Because I wanted her to feel like, you know, she's safe and it wasn't going to affect her services. So that was okay. So I sent her $10,000, which is a lot of money to me, a lot of money. And, but I wanted her to have that because I felt like she was like, we were back to where we were before all of this happened. You know, I thought that's where we were. This is what I'm trying to get on with my story here. I thought that's where we were. We were back to where I thought things were. And just recently, she had started dating a nice guy from Puerto Rico at her job. He seemed like a nice Christian guy, you know, younger guy. They're the same age. And I thought, oh, everything's starting to get normal, you know, and then he had to go back to he was on like a work thing with from Puerto Rico, and he had to go back to Puerto Rico until January of this year, I guess. And so she was talking about getting herself a dog, like a companion animal, and not to mention that she talked me into getting her cats at our apartment, and then she left those cats, you know, the whole pet thing, right? And so she wanted a companion animal, and I was trying to be supportive. I'm like, because when I was young, when I was in my early 20s, I had gotten my first dog, and I loved that dog. Oh my goodness, that was my first baby, was that dog. And I thought, oh, you know, she's just getting on the right track here, and she's going to have this little dog and take care of it. And, well, besides issues with the dog, I could start to tell, you know, things weren't going right. Something was going on. You know, I started having that sixth sense or intuition, like something's not feeling right here. And, anyway, she decides to not keep the dog. She had it for a while.
If every one of those notifications is the same person texting you, that's a problem. That is a problem. Why? And all right, so this is I still don't know where we are on this. I cannot make heads or tails, but I am seeing red flags everywhere with everyone, especially with you. So you got two more recordings. It would make some heads or tails of these, I hope.
Sorry, my radio cut in and cut off the recording. So I was saying I could start sensing, like I had an intuition that something was going off the rails a little bit with her again. And so she decides to turn the dog back in, which I wasn't real excited about. And then she starts getting all of these like other kinds of pets, a tarantula, a lizard. She started out with fish, but then the fish died, and she was like getting all these other pets, which really to me weren't companion animals, right? They were just kind of like things you like look at, right? In a terrarium or an aquarium or something like this. Well, then on top of that, I come to find out, and I understand that, you know, once I gave her that money, it was her choice what to do with it, but I told her why I'd given it to her. You know, I was afraid in the future, maybe she'd, because at this time she still wasn't talking to her dad. And I was afraid in the future I wouldn't have money to leave her a retirement, or, you know what I mean, leave her an inheritance or anything like that. I was afraid. So I'm like, I want you to just have it now, and then you can feel like, you know, secure that you have this money. And anyway, come to find out, you know, on top of me having all these weird feelings, and then just the choices she was making with the dog, and then, you know, she blew through all that money. She blew through all the money. And but really what I'm upset about is she's become very hostile with me, like getting very comfortable with not being very nice to me, not talking to me very nice. And just, yeah, we finally had another blow up where she got real nasty with me. And
it seems like you are a very distracted person. And she has hostility because you are constantly distracted by other things. And like I told you earlier, you have no idea how poorly you're coming off in all of this. I still don't know. I don't know because I have, you keep going into these backstories that go nowhere. They give me nothing other than to say that the problem primarily is coming from you. Because you are all over the place. You are completely distracted. And and it seems to me that you refuse to eliminate the distractions in your life. The distractions come before all else.
And you know, the first time when it happened, when her and my ex-husband took off, I attributed it to he was being a bad influence. It was teenage rebellion, something like this. But this time I'm more and more thinking, no, this is her now. This is her personality now. So we didn't speak. We haven't spoke in a long time now, and it'd been like I don't know, like 2 months or something. She finally did reach out and text me, and she just said, "Hi, Mom." But see, I could tell from that, it's kind of like, "Hi, Mom," not like, "Hi, Mom," you know, like. So I didn't respond, which is not like me. But I feel like, unless she comes back to me, more apologetic, more wanting to have like a normal relationship, that I'm just kind of like, you know, because they put me through that whole thing. Like I would always try to reach out to her during the pandemic, and they, like I said, they completely stonewalled me. So I almost feel like now this time, you know, anyway, I'm because I'm still going through it. I'm really struggling with this part because it's my daughter, right? And I want to say I've had these issues, of course, with my ex-husband, my mom. You know, like they say, when you come, I think what you say, like when you come from narcissistic abuse, it's like you just almost like you attract it to you or something. I'm in real shock now that it's my daughter. You know, like, what? And I was basically saying, she's just getting too comfortable mistreating me. Oh, if I can say this real quick before I stop with this one. The first time I saw this happening was, let's see here. It was after the divorce. Because I was already dating the person I'm in a relationship with now. And she went to New York with my aunt to visit my family up there. And while she was gone, I had decided, I'd always been like, I always highlighted my hair blonde, right? But it's so funny because you talk about your hair and stuff. I had always like highlighted my hair blonde, but I decided to go natural, like just to go gray, go natural. And for one thing, the blonde highlights, I think once my hair started going gray, it would like melt the gray or white hair, white hair, the highlights would like almost start like melting the white hair. It responded differently to dye or highlighting than when you have younger hair, the white hair did. So I thought I'm going to go natural now because I'd rather have like healthy hair than dyed hair, right? Um, so in my mind, when I was looking at my hair, my natural hair growing in, to me, it looked black and white to me. And I didn't want the yellow blonde because I'm like a color person, and I'm like matching my makeup or my clothes or something. I didn't want like yellow and white, you know. So in my mind, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to dye my hair black and see how that grows in. In my mind, I thought that would look better than the yellow. And so I dyed my hair black, and it didn't look bad. I mean, a lot of people thought it looked good, you know, on me. And I don't think they were just saying that. I mean, I think it was like decent. But my whole family's reaction was very not nice, right? It wasn't nice. But like I said, that's a whole nother thing when you come from a situation, right? Well, when my daughter came back from that trip, I dyed my hair black while she was gone, but I did like a little video and showed my family up there, and they all had, like I said, a very negative reaction. Well, when my daughter came home, that's the first time I saw her having a nasty attitude with me. And at that point, I put her in her place, right? You know, she's still, you know, like she was a teenager, but you know, she was still in my home, and I'm like, you're not going to talk and treat me that way. You know why?
Wait, what did she say? What did she say? I mean, it seems like everybody's having a visceral reaction to your behavior. And I don't think you're stepping back into taking any self-analysis. Like, you know, is there anything I'm doing that's pissing everybody off? Could this be a possibility? I don't even think you're exploring the possibility that you could be the cause of a lot of these issues.
Why would you act that way towards me? You know, and she apologized. You know, she was like, "Oh, Mom, I'm sorry." And we made up and everything was good, but that was the first time I saw her kind of not be nice. You know, and doing these not nice things. And now she's done it again. Yeah. And this time, okay, so like one of the descriptions I would say about my mom was I always felt like Charlie Brown and Lucy, like Lucy would hold up the football and Charlie Brown would always come back and kick it again. I feel like that's what I always do. I'm always like set up and just go to kick the ball again, and every time I wound up, you know, falling down, right? Just like Charlie Brown, right? And I'm really upset because now I feel like it's that situation with my daughter too. Yeah. And I'm right in the middle of it. But, you know, I have other stories that I'd like to share, but this one's a big one for me now. The big one, because I'm still in the middle of it, and I'm still trying to process it, and what do I do about this? And truthfully, though, I feel like it's almost a blessing that they left and all this stuff happened so far away from me, you know, and I'm okay. I'm doing okay. Like, I think they really wanted to hurt me and make it to where I had no one to help me with.
That's what it seems like. And I think they're just like at the point where they're sick of dealing with your shit. They're sick of dealing with your shit. They're sick of your boyfriend and your studio and all the stuff that you're doing. They're sick of your shit. You shouldn't have put it on your daughter to take care of her brothers. Like after you left, after the divorce, they're sick of your shit. Like look, you message in with me and you don't even shut off the damn text messaging. Like, who is text messaging you like this? Or your notifications. It's like on and on and on. Like, everybody just has to deal with your shit. And they're sick of it. That's how this comes off. They're just sick of your shit.
Because at the time, like I said, I'm in a relationship with somebody now and it's really serious now, but at the time we were still just kind of dating, right? And, I was really left alone, because I didn't have anyone helping me with the boys. And I don't want to be like, oh, because that was the whole thing. My family tried to act like, oh, your mom's just using you and all of this. And it wasn't like that. I mean, she had the freedom to do whatever she wanted to do. If she wanted to go get a job, she could do that. If she wanted to, I thought we were working together to get ahead. Right. So.
Well, working together, I mean, she's got her own, like, you're involving, by working together, you mean picking up her brother so you can go and expand your career or date with your boyfriend. No, I mean, I think it does sound like you were using her to a certain extent. Not that she doesn't have her problems and your ex husband doesn't have his problems. I obviously do. But you're a big part of this.
But I have to say, God's been good. We've been fine. Everything's been fine. We made it through all of that. More, it's just the heartbreak, right? It's just the heartbreak. And now, here it is again. I had this like whole hope and future of, this mother-daughter relationship and, and it's like not it. And it just seems like it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So anyhow,
I don't see anything in your relationship that would be based on anyway. Like, it's just something you want because you want it. But what is? I mean, you sent her $10,000, but what work did you do? You made her life when you left and got a studio apartment. Do you think that made her life better or worse?
that's my one story about my daughter. But I would like to share some other ones that have happened. But I really appreciate your channel, and I hope you and Charlene are okay, and that we get through this hurricane okay. And I just I would really like to be supportive because I've gotten so much support from everyone's stories too. So I know this is long. Hopefully my other stories won't be this long.
All right, and there is another addendum to this as well.
I just want to add this little part too about the hair thing and my daughter. Was my daughter when she was little, I would always fix her hair. She has this beautiful like auburn chestnut color hair, and it's wavy, and I would always fix it. I had her grow real long and fix it and all of this. And when she became a teenager, she wanted to cut it like short, like a pixie cut. And I was always supportive of whatever she wanted to do. Okay, if that's what you want, if that's what makes you happy. I even took her one time, she did like dyed it, when it was popular, she did like purple and blue and green, like different I think it's like called like an ombre or something. We did that, which they had to like bleach it and then put the colors in it. We did that. And then later on, she wanted to like shave part of the underneath of her hair. And I was always like, if that's what you want to do, if that's what makes you happy, that's what we'll do. And it was just so weird, everyone's response, just because I dyed my hair black. Just so weird, right? Like, why are you so, I didn't raise her to be that way. I didn't raise her to be mean because they didn't like my hair. Yeah, it's weird because I know you've been talking about your hair a lot. And I'm like, you know what? I have a hair story too. Yeah, so since then, all the dye is grown out, and I'm completely natural now, and it looks good. It's okay. It's healthy for sure. Um, I think it's fine, but yeah, it's just really weird. Like, I raised her to be kind to people and supportive, and um it is like you say, you start reflecting back on incidences, and you're like, yeah, that was weird. And okay, so what I'm thinking now is, one time when she was little, um I think I had tried to cut my hair. What had happened? I think I decided to go like shoulder length because my hair had been real long. And I think I decided to go like shoulder length. And I had who I thought was a friend, cut it for me. She said she knew how to cut hair, and she started to cut my hair, but she really messed it up. And I don't know how, because I've got like straight hair, it's not like that hard to, I mean, I cut my own hair a lot. So she really messed it up. So I ended up having to go to the hairdresser anyway. And then they ended up doing it like almost like for a while it was real popular to have like the back of your hair shorter than the front. Like, it was like, I think they call it like a bob, where the back is shorter than the front. And the hairdresser ended up doing that, and a lot of people again liked it. I got compliments on it once I had it fixed. But my daughter then, and she was little then, she didn't like it, but her explanation then was, it was just a dramatic change because I had long hair, and then now it was short. And she just said that, and I could understand that. If you see your mom all the time looking one way, now you look different. For a child, that could be a little dramatic. But yeah, it's just funny. It started out, the narcissism started out with me, really with my ex-husband, but then I went back to my childhood, right? So then it was like my parents and my ex-husband, and now it's like, now my own child? Really? Oh, yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna send these 3 videos in with my support this time, and maybe try to share some of my other stories. And anyhow, like I said, I hope we all stay safe through the hurricane.
Okay. Like, I don't even know where to go with the hair thing. I mean, it's just a lot of it just doesn't, it's just incoherent, a lot of it. And to me, it sounds like your daughter is just sick of dealing with you. She's just sick of dealing with it. I mean, if this is how you communicate, then I could see why. Um, is your daughter or not? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I can't tell from this story because it's everywhere. It's all over the place. I mean, it seems like she resents you. I mean, it seems that's what it seems like. She has a lot of resentment right? Oh, a lot of resentment of you, and I don't know. I don't know, because your story is all over the place. You keep taking side roads that never go anywhere. You're getting text message after text message after text message. It's gobbledygook. I can't make sense of it. And I can only ascertain that this is how you live your life. And if this is how you're living your life, I could see why she's treating you at this point the way she's treating you. So, like, I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer than that. I can't. But I mean, I don't know what to do here. And I hope my subscribers aren't being too mean to you in the comments section, but I could tell you they're probably being mean to you in the comments section. And and calling you out on a lot of things. I just don't know what to do with any of this. So, I mean, if you write in again and if you do this again, please turn off all your notifications, turn off your text notifications, and stay on one story at a time. You cannot go off on tangent after tangent after tangent. It goes nowhere. It makes it incomprehensible for an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, I don't even know who. I'd be surprised if anybody could get to the end of this. I really am. But thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your stories. I mean, I wish I could give you a better answer other than you're going to have to look into the mirror and say, am I the cause of most of this? And that's the best I can do for you. Excuse me. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like me to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care.